Hello, beauty. Hello, gorgeous visionary. Okay, let's continue this conversation of identity, but specifically as it relates to you as a visionary and the work that you're here to do in the world and the service that you're here to offer. And so, remembering that when I use the term visionary, what I mean is you have a desired reality that you want to create, but not just that, but you have a quality that you want to have. You have a standard you want to work at. You have parts of your cycle that you want to disengage from and try doing life a different way, right? And so we have a vision for that happening, right? And we have a sense of who we are as we move through that desired vision. And the question of who am I is so vast, it's so big, and it's so complex. Even though we know that humans are very predictable, we're very cyclical, we're very reliable, in that we're all going to have thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and emotions. But inside of us, there's a very complex system of how we do see ourselves, how we do identify, how we do have an understanding of who we are. Your complex system of history, you carry it in your body, it's in your DNA, it's in the stories that you grew up with, it's in the stories you see yourself in, it's in your lineage, it's part of who you are and how you are in the world and how you understand yourself is the needs of your ancestors, the cutting of the cords that need to be done. If that resonates with you, if it doesn't, that's all good. But the ancestral healing that you're here to do, and also the lived experiences that you've had in this lifetime, it shapes how you are and who you are and how you understand yourself. And it could be even previous lifetimes that you may or may not be consciously aware of. We are the relationships that we have with ourselves, the parts of us, the voices in our head. We're the relationships that we have in our external world, in our family, and all types of relations. And we are also our identity is shaped so much by the beliefs that we have, the beliefs about what's possible for somebody like us, the beliefs that we have around what the world, if the world is a safe place, if it's safe to be fully expressed in who we are. We have a worldview. You have a way of not just being in the world and the way that you carry your body, your emotions, your energy. You have a view of life itself. You have a worldview, a way that you see life is. You have things that matter to you, and your core values are so intricate and intersectional with your identity on who you believe you are. You are the things that you believe in, the things you don't believe in. You are the truths that you carry. And I believe that we all have, I used to call them guiding lights. They're still guiding lights, but um, you have things that you believe in so deep in the marrow of your bones that nobody could talk you out of this. They are so true for you. And when you're out in the world sharing your work, please remember that sharing the things that are true for you and the way that you see life and the belief system that you have and the values that you carry and what matters to you, those are so important. Not just building like a like, know, and trust factor. They're just so important for people to really get the essence of who you are and how you are in the world. And you also have a language that you use to describe your experiences. You have meaning that you make out of life itself. And that definitely shapes who we see ourselves as and how we are. So the voices in our head. And I'm not to suggest saying that, you have a voice that doesn't think you're good enough. That's not necessarily the truth of who you are, but it's a part of your experience. It's part of how you are experiencing life, is there is a part that feels very vulnerable and not safe in the world to feel like she can have her voice, right? And it's not all of you, but it's a part of you. So we are the parts of ourselves. Sometimes we find things like human design, gene keys, which has come up in my field in the last 3 days. Gene keys help explain who we are. So there's structures out there that people have created. Astrology is one, numerology, your life path, and it helps us to understand and sometimes see ourselves in a system where we're like, yeah, I really resonate with that. That really explains a lot for me. That really affirms a lot for me. That really guides me. So we have sometimes this innate design that we are. Do you know your human design? Just out of curiosity, I'm certainly not an expert in that field. I'm a generator, by the way. But take a look if you haven't, and it may illuminate some things. So there's different ways that we can see ourselves in different archetypes. One thing I want to share with you as a visionary, as somebody who has a new and desired outcome and a reality that you're seeking to create for yourself for the greatest, highest good, not just for you, but for the world around you. As a visionary and a guide that you are for others when you're in service to the world. And when I say in service to the world, it's not to suggest at the expense of being in service to yourself, right? We know that, right? We can be in service and still feel full from it. So as a visionary and a guide, part of who you are is a place in somebody's journey, right? And it's a beautiful and empowering and courageous thing to really take ownership and responsibility for that calling, right? That you really are an important place in somebody's journey, whether you've connected with them in tangible ways or not. You being here has a brilliant impact on other people and their own life. You're a benchmark for some people between before they knew what they knew and experienced what they experienced and after. You are a place in somebody's journey. You are a process that you offer other people. We're going to be talking about the process that your work brings people through. Sometimes people call it your signature process. Whenever I hear that, potential clients and some of you have reached out to let me know, like, I'm really not feeling clear, like I'm pivoting all the time, I'm not really sure what I'm doing. It's a really easy fix for that, right? Like a really easy tweak or like a place to look at is really getting clear on what your signature process is. So I'm definitely going to be sharing that with you, and I'm really looking forward to holding space for that. But part of who you are is the very process that you bring others through in the work that you're here to do in the world. And you are the medicine that you bring into the world. If that resonates, that you have medicine to give the world, that's part of who you are. That's part of your beautiful imprint. So at the very core of it, you are the vision that you seek for yourself and for the world. You are that. You are the process that you serve other people in, right? And the journey that you bring people through. So I wanted to share that because that's a beautiful remembering and a reclaiming of our gift and our innate brilliance of just being who we are in the world, right? And of course, doing all the work to really take off some of the masks that we've learned over time that we have to wear to stay safe in the world, and know that there's another way to do that, and know that the world is a safe place for us to express ourselves and to feel like we can express ourselves and have what we want. So I have an invitation for you here. A lot of the time in the self-development world, in the healing world, in the spiritual realm, there's a lot of narrative around blocks and having a problem to solve. And so I want to do an also and here where we can have this language also, and I want to hold space for discernment. I really want to invite you to be very discerning, almost like a gate that not everything gets to pass through and come into your body and being, right? Not every meaning or language or verbiage out there has to be for you. And so I honor and offer to you to be very discerning about if it's true for you, right? And this is the deep an ancient practice of just choosing yourself and recognizing you're a sovereign being. So is it true? Is it really fully true that you have money blocks, abundance blocks, sisterhood wounds, visibility wounds, limiting beliefs? So again, it's an also and where you can know that there's a part of you that feels a restriction around money or abundance or being in relationship with other women or being seen in the world or believing in possibility where you couldn't before. So I want to have an also and where that gets to be true for you, but for a part of you. So not all of you is blocked. Not all of you has an abundance block or all of you has a sisterhood wound. But that there may be parts of you that do. And so we just really want to take the work and focus and remember that it's a part of us having that experience so that our identity is not shaped by this part taking over our system. Because when it takes over our system, because it needs to be heard and it floods us, we can hide, we can run, we can avoid, and we can move away from the very things that we can lean into safely and in community with. So we want to be self-directed. And I'll talk a little bit more about self on our calls. So just an invitation that you're in relationship with these things, that parts of you, you're in relationship with the part of you that has fears around things. You're in relationship with ideas and thoughts about abundance, about money, about emotions, beliefs, stories, lived experiences. You're in relationship to all of these things. And so the invitation is to really be discerning about what truly is a block for you. right? And to really, really check your gates there around whether that's true. Because if we're blocked, we're blocked, we're blocked. If we're a problem to solve, then we're coming from a very different place. So remembering that the core pillars of any kind of transformation work is always looking at these three places: the beingness of us, how we do life, how we align ourselves into action. Aligned action for me means being honest, means doing things in an honest way. And then the receiving, the having of the outcomes that we want. And we're going to have sticky parts in all of these, and some of these are going to feel more fluid than others. So I have the lineage here of Locke Kelly being the one that I had first heard say this. If you know anybody else, I invite you to let me know. So for the being, I have some prompts for each of these sections for you today, an invitation into to really get curious about who you are when there's no problem to solve, when there's nothing wrong, when there's no limiting belief, when you don't have a block. Who are you then? And who are you when there's nothing wrong? And so to really let this one settle into your system over the next few days and really start to think about that. When we operate from that place of being, it's like we go right into the heart of the divine manifestation that God, creator, source, whatever works for you, universe has created us to be. So creator never sat down and said, I'm going to build half a soul. Okay, so you are the fullness. You are the fullness. It's the isness of you. When we talk about the doing, the aligned action, right? This is where we can feel the wobble. This is where we can feel the voices in our head. Who am I to say that? Who am I to be this? Who am I to take this action? We can start to lack consistency in this area. And I really want to help support you in that, especially on our live calls. So who are you being as you take action? Are you coming from self? Self is the unwavering part of you, the divinity of you, the part that can hold space for the fears, can hold space for the wobble, can hold space for the fear of shame or humiliation, can hold space for all of that, right? So who are you as you take action? What part of you is taking action? And how are you making sure that you're held accountable and aligned as you take action and as you move? So who's coming with you on your journey? And not just who are the people that you're here to serve, but who are the people that are going to be in service with you as you move forward in your vision? Who is in your community? And then remembering what is the next right step. This is a big one for the doing. So my invitation is to remember that we live here in this present moment, and that all action takes place from this very moment that you're having. And it's not about trying to get into the quantum and working with timelines and doing all of that. That can definitely be done. It's super exciting. It's super delicious and juicy. And I love it. And I love it. And I love it. But remembering that the work lives here in this moment. It lives here on the ground level, lives here on Earth side. It lives here in this 3D world that we do live in with its form and structure. And so what makes the most sense for you to move the needle forward by taking the next right step? What is the next right step? And to remember that we only move from this present moment. And then when we talk about the receiving and the having of the desires, just excuse me, just a reminder here that this can be the stickiest place for us, is that we can feel really good about the being, like I'm very confident, okay, I've got my clarity and I'm taking that aligned action and it feels really good. And then the thing happens that I wanted to happen. And then sometimes our human goes, when's the other shoe going to drop? What's going to go wrong? And we're scanning for problems because we're so used to being in a space of problem solving. Remember when I asked, who are you when there's no problem to solve? Remember when we really excavate and come from that place, the receiving has a much cleaner channel to come into us, and we're more likely to accept it rather than find ways to reject the good, right? Gay Hendricks does a lot of this in his Big Leap. If you haven't read that book, it's a good one. Okay, so who are you as you receive your desires? And then what inspires you to give back as you receive? And the big one here is, what parts of me may feel a restriction around the receiving? So when I first started, I'll tell you really quickly, when I first started, I loved launching. I loved pre-launch. I loved launching. I loved filling my seats. I loved getting all my content ready and getting my courses all organized. I loved all of that. And within the first like 2 or 3 calls, that was the hardest part for me. You would think that that would be the easiest part because all the hard work had been done. But actually for me, what was really challenging back then, this is going back a few years, was actually feeling safe to receive that I created what I wanted to create and that it was good enough, right? And so that was something that came up for me. So just getting clear on what part of you may feel a restriction around the receiving, what stories might it have, what does it need you to know, what fears does it have, and just being willing to just hold space for that and clarify what that actually is and really receive the messages that those parts have for you. Because it doesn't mean they're true about you. It's not who you are, but it's a part of you having an experience, a memory, some memory. It may remember like the last time we had something, it got taken away. So we want to be really clear and clean with this relationship with our parts so that we can actually process them in a smooth, in a good way, right? So, excuse me. I want to remind you too that, yep, we get to receive, and to remember that a really big collective shift that we're really being called into, that we've been called into for millennia, is like, what can you give back now to your community? What can you give back out in the world after you've received, right? It's wonderful to put more money in the hands of women, but how are we changing the dynamic and the economics out there? So what can we give back? Okay, root cause and root expression. I'm going to cover this really briefly. This is just a little tiny little invitation and mini teaching here. A lot of the time in the spiritual self-development world, we can talk about root cause. Like if I could just find the root cause of this and just pull it out, I wouldn't have to deal with it anymore. But I'm sure that you're familiar with, first of all, a dandelion is a taproot. So technically you can pull a dandelion out and the root just all comes out and there's no more left of that dandelion, except that that's not true, because we know how dandelions operate. You can't just pull one dandelion and expect the rest of them to be gone, because one root cause isn't always in relationship to the rest of the ecosystem around it. It has seeds and it's in relationship with all other parts. That's why it's very hard, very easy to feel overwhelmed. And feeling overwhelmed in our head, at least, is just because we have a bunch of different voices and parts of us that are all trying to talk to us at once. Right? And so we need to be able to make space and isolate and just deal with one at a time. So root cause and root expression. The reason I'm sharing this is because we can take a lot of time and energy focusing on a root cause. And we sometimes will internalize this as a visionary, thinking that creating this condition of, I have to be fully healed before I can help heal others. And my invitation is that maybe that's not true. Because healing is like, it's a journey, right? It's not even just like an onion where we're peeling the layers back, because there's just an infinite number of those if we really think about it. Also, and the work happens in the now. And so my invitation is to start getting open and familiar with whatever this was back then, whatever this first initial experience that caused this cycle to begin within myself. Rather than trying to like locate it back on your timeline definitively, because how are we going to know, right? Memory is not always reliable, right? Not always reliable. Get curious about how this fear, concern, perceived experience that you had, a trauma, how is it expressing itself in the current, in the now? Where is it showing up in your life now? And work from that place, okay? So it's both. Okay, so I don't want to diminish the purpose of root cause, because that's important. That's about the healing. That's a huge portion of what we do, especially in the second module of my journey, right? Repair and reclaim, right? Repair the parts that have stories of being broken. Help them to heal, help them to unburden themselves, right? And reclaim that self-driven leader that you are. And remember that root expression, that's where mindset comes in. And mindset is so powerful when it's done in the right order, right? So we do want to take a look at the root cause. We do want to excavate a little bit. We want to know how to do that on our own. And we want to be able to know that root expression is the current. It's how it shows up in the right now. And that's the piece that when we can get clear about that and be willing to look at the expression in the right now, rather than think it's a big problem to solve from the back then, if we look at it in the now, it actually helps us to stay consistent, right? We're all looking for more consistency. The one thing that can take us out of consistency is thinking that our problem is so big and so vast that we can't possibly find a way through in this particular moment. right? And that's just not always true. So this is where mindset comes in. This is where really coming back into self comes in. This is a very important opportunity for you. So root expression, it's a mindset opportunity. So the invitation right now is, what comes up when you think about, just when you think about, right? We're not looking to like go into the depths of the full feeling body all the time, but what just comes up when you think about your offers? Drop into the body safely as it feels good for you. But what comes up when you think about your offers? When you think about putting yourself out there, being seen, when you think about really naming your desire and really going for it. Because I believe that we all actually know how to go for what we want. Sure, sometimes we need a little help putting a few things in the right order and fixing the puzzle pieces and just tweaking, but we know what we want and we know how to get it, right? Relationship with consistency, being seen, and what's your relationship with failure? And just start to notice what shows up. Just start to notice what the voices are. And this is an opportunity to have a little shift in your mindset. One quick opportunity there is to recognize that the doubt that I have, or the feelings I have, or the stories I have, or the thoughts, sensations, and belief I have around this question, what about failure, for example? It's not all of you, remember. It's a part of you having an experience. It doesn't have to flood and take over our system for us to be able to listen to it. Okay. So that is what I wanted to share with you today. And I'm going to leave you with this in the expression inquiry, in this here and now, right? As the visionary that you are, in the way that you see yourself, in the way you see your path, in the timeline that you're on, what may feel unfinished right now? What do you know that you're in process with? What do you know that you're in process with and you're moving along with? So that's a big umbrella question. So just notice what first comes up for you. And it's a thought seed question. In other words, it's just there to plant a thought in your conscious mind and see what comes up, see what shows up. So that's it for today. I'm really looking forward to serving you in the ways that you need. And I'm looking forward to meeting all of you.